friends. How are we? Good.
I can't
Glad
speak
to
for
hear it.
anybody else.
No, I'm not speaking for anyone. I'm speaking to them. I hope everyone is well. It's another OTC episode. Chris and I are back. We're going to talk about some flicks momentarily. It's a Patreon show. It's a show made by one of our listeners, made by one of our friends. This is an Ollie show. I think he had sent us some stuff previously, and it got lost in the ether, so he had resent his stuff. I was like, I don't know if you guys missed this, and we definitely did, so I'm glad that he resent it. So he has programmed the show today. Leave it to our British friends to just always seem to give us the most depressing fucking movies.
To be fair, one of them is one that we should cover before the show ends for good.
I was actually a little surprised that we had not covered Threads.
I thought I had brought it up a couple times in the past.
It has come up before,
and I'm like,
sure.
I am not going to watch this. Every time I would see it, I'd be like, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait till I have to watch this because I'm not going to want to watch it twice.
No. We had watched A Boy and His Dog, which was another film kind of like Threads that basically gave us what you would call a somewhat lifelike,
to a point,
showing of post-nuclear war world.
Still had
but
some
Threads took it to a
fantasy
different
stuff
level.
to it, though, didn't it?
A little bit, yeah. There's no fantasy about Threads. Threads is 100% like if a bomb was dropped on the UK, this is what would happen. So it's a tough watch. And in the world that we've lived in, it's not something I've necessarily really wanted to watch recently, which might be maybe we did see his email and we decided to put it on the back burner. Now I'm thinking about it. I kind of remember being like, oh man, like I don't think I want to cover this right now.
I can,
Not that now being like April 2024 is really any better, but I guess let's get it in before Trump gets reelected and we all actually have to worry about this again.
I'm gonna go on the record here, and
it.
I'm gonna say he will not get reelected because
You don't think so? I'm convinced he is.
Too many Republicans have jumped ship. Too many of the normal, like every day I can still talk to you because it's just a policy difference between us Republicans, and there are a lot of them. These crazy fucking Nazis aren't the majority, and he is losing.
No, I get that. My worry though, Chris, is that we know he's going to get the nomination. There's no question.
I thought he already did.
And
I thought that was, but go ahead.
He might. There's no chance that Nikki Haley catches him anyway.
No, she quit.
That she. Oh, did she? Well, she was the only one that was running against him at this point. So, my concern though is that people that may have not voted for him 4 years ago, that voted for Joe Biden, are those people that didn't want to support Joe Biden in the first place, but supported him because they were anti-Trump. A lot of those people now have come out to say they're not going to support Joe Biden in this election, which is essentially if you're not voting for him, you're voting for Trump. You can't there's no third party option here.
There's that fucking weirdo RFK.
Yeah, but he's not. He doesn't have a chance.
That doesn't matter, though. You remember how we got Trump? It was all of those stupid fucking Bernie bullshit people that went and voted for the third party guy that took the 25,000 votes away from Biden to win at a certain state. And those people, Trump. Okay, so there was a primary.
I didn't mean to get so political right out of the gate, but if we're talking about a movie like Threads, I don't think we can not talk about it.
There was a primary in Michigan, and I want to say that none of the above, I don't remember the exact thing, got 30% of the vote. So all of these people that would have voted for the Republican but can't bring themselves to vote for Biden will not vote for either. Which helps us,
right?
Us being the side that doesn't want to be a fascist Nazi, country.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm hopeful, but I'm not convinced.
But then there's still his 91 felony counts, and the fact that he's a rapist and he's committed fraud for 30 years in New York. Like, he should be disqualified from holding office, and that's what we're waiting for.
100%. Like 100%.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. Well, let's let this go. Like, I don't want to like me and you could do. If anyone does want to hear Chris and I talk politics, like let us know. We could do like a Patreon thing for you guys or whatever. Because I know our listenership is fairly broad across there. I can't imagine that we have a lot of Nazi sympathizers that listen to the show. But I know, like, if it's something you would want to hear from us, let us know. But I don't. Let's get more into this. All right. So the show this week, Ollie, a good friend of ours from the UK, has been a supporter of the show for a very long time. We appreciate his love and his support. So he sent 2 flicks for us to cover. And then Chris and I kind of divided and conquered on the second flick because there's a little thing going on here. So first, as we said, hi, Bill and Chris. It's kind of my thing to recommend British films that Chris hates. I've heard about a made-for-TV film called Threads being a scary watch, and now I found it on the internet. He sent us an archive.org link, but it is available to watch on Tubi
and YouTube
in the United States and YouTube. It's up on YouTube also. It's the type of thing where it's very much a product of its time, but we'll get there.
Well, I mean, he
says, yeah, I'd love your take on it and then give it a watch myself. The next on my watch list is Whistle and I'll Come to You, which is based on a scary short story. Now, this is where we kind of divided and conquered. He had sent me the 1958 version, which was done for British television, a BBC series called Omnibus, I believe is what it was. I watched that, but we saw that there was a 2010 version of this on Tubi with John Hurt. Chris watched that.
I think
I actually watched, but I watched both of them. Chris just didn't have time to catch both of them, but I thought it would be interesting to kind of watch the 2 of them. There's also a 3rd version of this that came out in 2020. We weren't digging into that. There's also a 10-minute version of it that was available for, I think, in the early 50s, if I'm not mistaken.
A 10-minute version?
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know much about that and couldn't find out much about that. If you do a search online, the John Hurt one, which was also a made-for-TV BBC thing, comes up most frequently. So, I want to thank Ollie for sending us the stuff. And again, like, I think when we watched The War Room, that was from somebody in the UK. Like, guys, if you're in the UK, is there nothing that makes you feel good? Like, do you not want to be happy? Do you not want to watch things that make you happy, or do you just like to torture us?
They're just too much of a realist over there.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is what we got going on. So
well, the thing too is, I mean, if you're a listener of the show and you've been listening to the show for an extended amount of time, our most interesting reviews come from films like this because there's more meat on the bone. We can dig into it a little bit more. It's the type of thing where it's not just a situation where we're like, oh, this or whatever, you know? So we're going to start with Threads. I think, do I have a trailer here?
The skeleton of a bird.
When you hear the attack warning, you and your family must take cover at once.
This time, they are playing with, at best, the destruction of life as we know it, and at worst, total annihilation. You cannot win a nuclear war!
Is it for real? Attack warnings for bloody real. Is it?
All right, Threads, 1984, made. Stop.
It's hard.
Stop. Made for British TV, directed by Mick Jackson, written by Barry Hines. Mick Jackson also directed Volcano in 1997. I think he directed the Bodyguard too, if I'm not mistaken.
Interesting.
Hold on, let me scroll through here and see. I know he did something with the Bodyguard. I don't know whether he Volcano, 1997. Clean slate. Yeah. Yeah, The Bodyguard, L.A. Story.
Oh, well, okay. That's the ones with Steve Martin, right? Yeah.
Correct. Which is a pretty good movie. I actually really enjoyed that.
That movie taught me because it came out. When did that come out?
80 or 92?
92. Yeah. I learned that when you get shot, you pee yourself from L.A. Story.
Yeah.
Because, like, good luck holding it in.
Got nothing to lose at that point.
No.
So starring Karen Meager, Reese Dinsdale, David Brearley, Rita May, Nicholas Lane, Jane Hazelgrove. So Threads is a very simple story. It is the story of the world on the brink of World War III, the Americans and the Russians at each other's throats, which was the truth for this time period.
Yeah.
Height of the Cold War before, the Berlin Wall came down and all of the things that came with that, fighting over oil in the Middle East. Mm-hmm. And it is taken from the mindset of people that live in Britain, in the UK, and kind of their whole, seeing these things happen. We hear a lot of news stories about what's going on, the US invading places in Iran, the Russians coming back and counter-striking these things. Then they talk a bit about the British government, the British Air Force getting involved a little bit. They prep you for a good, 35, 40 minutes.
Well, that's the interesting thing about this. If you don't pay attention to the main characters, the characters and what they're saying, then you see a very believable buildup to the first missile firing, because you get little snippets of like Russia invades Iran, and it's like that's fucking bad. That's really bad. And I thought that was the scariest, but also the most well thought out part of the whole film, was making it believable that the war would actually start. Because the whole deal with the Cold War is that we all kind of secretly knew that it wouldn't happen, because we had satellites that would detect launches from wherever Russia would launch them from, even Cuba. And we would fire every fucking missile we had. So it was a situation called mutually assured destruction. You push that button, you're killing your own people. And that was the one thing that stopped them from doing it, I think.
It was the whole, it's real simple. If this happens, everybody dies.
Yeah.
There's no win for anybody, no matter what you think is right. Everyone dies.
Yeah. And that's, I lived through, and I was aware of the Cold War and the missiles that were being moved around and the types that we had and who was where and what Russia was saying and all of the music and other stuff that was put out at the time. And it was a fucking miserable time to be a kid.
You're talking specifically about Billy Joel's "We Didn't Start the Fire," right?
No, Sting's song "Russians."
Which
is
I was joking.
Oh no, I appreciate the joke. I do, but the Sting song off of "Dream of the Blue Turtles," which I think I wore that tape out. It's straight and to the point. It's like, dude, we're all the same. We just have small differences. That's no reason to fuck shit up. I'm not as eloquent as Sting. So, but it was horrible. As a kid, you don't know how serious are these people. Who are these piece of shit motherfuckers that think they can just kill people indiscriminately?
Yeah.
And it leads to a lot of anger. And a lot of that came back while I was watching this. So I had fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm obviously, I'm a couple years younger than you, but I definitely still remember, in the 80s, the Cold War, and like nuclear war was something that we thought about. Like it was something like there's a chance it could happen, and when so this 84, I would have been 7 years old. You can't differentiate the fact that no one's going to really do this, because if the Russians fire a missile, they're killing all their own people. And the fact that would these politicians really just end the world
Right.
over a
Right.
disagreement.
And that was the yeah. But then you like I don't want to get too heavy.
It's okay. Well, let's get a little bit more into the movie.
Okay.
And maybe we can work some of this stuff in. So, as we said, we get a good half hour, 40 minutes or so of the buildup of all of the tension within the world, within the countries. They're going. It starts off at the beginning very much of just like, there's some unsettled stuff, but it's really nothing to worry about. And they build that sense of dread as it gets closer and there's more things happening and the things that are happening are bigger and more, intrusive to people's everyday life, to the point where they start talking about, like, well, what are we going to do if this happens? And the one thing I feel that this film kind of missed the boat on a little bit is that they treat it like half documentary, half narrative. And I struggled with the like narrative stuff when we're having so much of what exactly is going on, time periods and stuff. No, and more so than just like coming up on the screen 22 days after the missile strike, or like, it was more so of like, you're force feeding me information and then you're also showing it to me. So it's hampering my enjoyment, is not the word, because this is not a film that you watch or you enjoy. It's a film you endure. Much like that Russian movie we watched a while ago that was like 4 hours.
Oh, Hard to Be a God. Yeah.
Hard to Be a God. Yeah. You endure it, know, it's, but it actually took away from my connection with the characters, the female lead of Ruth, who ends up who's pregnant and she's trying to like, so.
Yeah. I had no investment in the personal story of the whole thing.
Yeah. It's not about the personal story.
No, because to me, it felt like they were showing you three sides of it. There's the on the street level stuff with cops trying to shoot looters that are taking food after all the bombs go off, chasing squatters out and all that. And then there's the people that have a place and they're just trying to stay alive during a nuclear winter, which is very difficult, if not impossible. And then you have the people in charge that you think the people that are at home, they're putting all their trust in them to know what they're doing. And you see that it's a fucking shit show because none of them actually believed it was going to happen. And that you see that with when the alarm goes off, and it's an alarm that doesn't sound like any other alarm in the movie. They all stop and they're like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" And it's like, yeah, here they come. And that's it. That's and what else was weird to me, but not totally ununderstandable, I guess is a dumb way to put it. They don't talk to any other country the entire time.
Yeah, it's very insular in terms of like you were presented everyday life in the UK post.
Well, I would imagine that once the first bomb went off, it fries all of your electronics with the EMP, and then you're stuck with certain means of communication, and across the ocean probably would be difficult. But it also kind of makes you wonder, how bad did Russia and the US get hit by each other?
Right. Yeah, that's one of I think the more unsettling things that I found with it. As you watch it, you're like, you have no idea what else is. Is everybody else gone? Like, and then also like the idea though too is like, if there was, this mass missile strike across the world, like that would also change the effects everywhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you've got like, megaton warheads that are dropped on multiple countries, like that nuclear winter is going to be a far different nuclear winter than like nothing survives, you know?
Right.
But it's presented in a very documentary-like feel, very dirty, very gross. There's cats on fire, dead kids, dogs buried in rubble, burnt to ash babies, people that become mutants, people throwing up everywhere, like
all the radiation sickness and everything, and that's, I can't tell you how sensationalized any of that is, but I don't think it was very much. because I mean,
Oh, I don't think this is sensationalized at all. I think this is, I don't know offhand, and I didn't do any additional research in terms of like if they base this on scientific.
oh,
like,
did you
this is what
see
we
the
think would
names at
happen.
the end?
No, I didn't.
There were 3 pages of names in the credits that were consultants, and all of the names started with either doctor or professor.
Oh, okay.
So
Good.
it's they weren't checking their calculations, I think. So I think it was pretty good.
Mm.
Because I like, did they put a stinger on the end here? Huh? What do we got? Is it going to be Reagan laughing at everybody? What?
Well, I know I did read. Reagan did a speech after this film aired, I guess, and it was like a very different speech than what he had been doing. Apparently, I don't have a lot of information. I just remember somebody telling me that like he reacted and basically kind of walked back a bunch of stuff because of just how harsh and how much this scared people.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing is like he was a piece of shit. First, he was the worst fucking president we ever had. Long term effect. Trump is the worst short term president we've ever had.
Yes. Present company excluded.
But Reagan has definitely fucked our country for 4 decades.
Yes.
Trickle-down economics, which we all knew wasn't a thing. I was like 10 years old, and I'm like, I don't understand how that's supposed to work. You guys get all the money, and then you're going to give us some? You've never given us some of the money. Fuck you. Reagan's a piece of shit.
Yep.
My point, this showed all of his saber-rattling rhetoric starkly. And people were like, dude, what the fuck are you getting us into? I would imagine. But I'm gonna see what he had to say after this, after we do the show. But yeah, there's no showing. Oh, plus we had that movie The Day After, which was kind of a sensationalized version of this.
Yeah.
Because that one felt more scare tactics. This one felt
We covered that, right?
No. I'm okay if we don't for a while.
Nope. I'm fine.
But this one, Threads is like, okay, this is what's going to happen. This is how fucked you're going to be. You're not going to get food. Everything is going to be irradiated. So no matter what you drink or eat, you're fucked. And there's nowhere to go, especially in the UK where you have a fucking island the size of New England.
Yeah.
Which is,
and the wind is just blowing everything everywhere.
Yeah. Like you can pretty much drive from one end of the country to the other in like 6 to 8 hours, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Well, in 8 hours, I can get down to Philadelphia, and that's not even halfway down the coast. So there's a big difference in 2 bombs over there and 2 bombs over here, because Russia would, of course, send all of their first strike missiles to the Midwest, where it's just wide open plains, and we had all our missile silos, or have all our missile silos. And then they would hit all the major cities. And when I was little, I spent a lot of time looking at maps thinking, am I outside of the danger zone? Because they'd hit Boston eventually.
Yeah. I mean, that whole idea of like they would go to DC first too, probably.
Yep.
DC and New York.
And then we'd be fucked because all of the irradiated everything would just get blown up here.
Yeah.
Through the Gulf Stream, through nor'easters like we normally get. And it would be over. We'd all, it was so scary. There was a day I was out delivering papers at like 7 o'clock in the morning, which was rare for me. And it started to snow in like the beginning of May. And it was warm, but there were snowflakes coming down. And I thought, oh shit, this is the fallout. And then I held a piece. I'm like, well, if there's radiation in the air, I'm screwed anyway. And then it melted, and I'm like, oh, thank God, it's just a freak snowstorm. It was just a light flurry, but it came down just enough to look like Silent Hill without the fog. And if it was if I knew if Silent Hill had been a thing, I think I would have been a little more calm. But I worried for a while that the threat of nuclear war held a shadow over over me for a very, very long time, and I
Totally get it, man. Totally get it.
I think it's what started the whole mindset of me thinking, yeah, at any point you just blink out and die for any reason.
And I think, like watching the movie, it's like if it were to happen, like I'd rather just go in that first wave. I don't want to try to survive in a world like that these people have to survive in, because I don't think I have the cutthroatness to survive.
Yeah.
Like, so, but the film is presented, it's dark, it's raw. There's not really a lot of like special effects. There's a lot of like stock footage used. There's some, and they definitely, built out like the burned out houses and like the rubble and stuff like that.
That's the most,
and it looks
that's
true.
the most effective
It looks
part.
true.
And
it looks true. So it's not the type of thing where like you're really having to reach.
Yeah.
But they didn't go hard on like explosion effects or like any of that stuff.
No, just straight up stock footage, it looked like.
Yeah.
Just superimpose it onto the cityscape. But that's the strength and the scariness of it really lies with the designers that made the sets that made it look that way. Because you needed a little bit of makeup stuff. You need a couple of squibs for people getting shot, but it was all about the setting and the environment, and those people knocked it out of the fucking park.
Agreed.
Awful.
Yeah, a lot of people talk about how this is like the scariest movie they've ever seen. It's a different type of scary. Like
it's Jesus Camp scary.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry, that's just Jesus Camp
not
is
the
a scary
not the
movie.
connection I would have made, but you're right.
Yeah.
So, it's it doesn't necessarily hold up in terms of the way it looks or feels, but it holds up in terms of its effectiveness.
Yeah.
So yes, today, 2024, as a society, we are not nearly as worried about nuclear war as we were in 1984. Is it still a possibility? Is it still out there? Yeah, but like we don't think about it in the way we do, because we know better that like unless, some crazy dictator somewhere was able to get a hold of, and I think the best comparison now is what we see with North Korea.
Yeah.
And how they have tried to build a bomb like this for years, and just like they just can't.
There's some disconnect where they cannot get a rocket that travels any distance needed. But I mean,
if I was the North Korean people, I'd be more worried about myself and them accidentally blowing the entire country up than I would be about like as an American, where Kim Jong-un would fire a missile at us.
But we're not his target. He would rather wipe out Japan. And that's why all of his missile tests are like ranged to Japan, because they hate them.
They just fall in the China Sea.
Yeah. Yeah. Plus, also,
but yeah, it's a different world, but it's still effective.
We don't have governments photoshopping extra missiles into their photos and shit, which Un did.
Yeah.
And like they didn't even change up the smoke trail, so it's like the exact same fucking image repeated. Like they're not going to do anything because they're not smart enough to even fool people.
Right.
And the Russians, I don't see the Russians on a battlefront, not cyber warfare or terrorism, or what's the other thing? Propaganda and influencing our politicians. They're good at that.
Well, the Russians, it's so obvious now, because when they invaded the Ukraine, they just thought they were going to roll into the Ukraine and take everything, and that did not work the way they thought it was going to.
No, and it's been over a year, and they can't take the country from what essentially are fucking rebels from Star Wars hiding out in the forest. And part of it is because the military people were so fucking corrupt, they sold everything they could out of their arsenal to make money, because they knew they would never go to war. And then you got Putin, who's a fucking maniac who wants to reunite the Soviet Union, and that's his main reason for doing this. Sending tanks in where if you put a grenade in the right spot, the whole turret pops off like a fucking jack-in-the-box because they're poorly designed. So they're not going to make it anywhere on ground. And of course, they can't pull out of the country because they can't show weakness.
Nope.
But we all see it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a very simple part of my brain that that says, why the fuck do you people have to do this? Why the fuck is Netanyahu such a fucking piece of shit? Why do these people have to act like that? Why can't they just help their people and leave everybody else the fuck alone? It's simple, right?
Oh, 100%.
But no, I said to my wife the other day, I said, there's a line in Attack of the Clones, which nobody saw. Anakin is like, basically, he's like, everybody should agree. And if not, somebody should make them agree. And there's a point. There's a little bitty point where I'm like, yeah, I get that. If it's the right thing to do, you fucking do it. It's like recycling, right? This is stupid, but listen, people don't want to recycle in the beginning. I don't know about now. Everybody's fine now, but people didn't want to. So in order to encourage it, they stopped taking certain things in the trash, like cardboard boxes. Put that in your recycling bin that we will fucking give you and put that out. And you have to kind of coax them into doing the right thing, but eventually they'll do it and it's not a problem.
Right.
But the division that we have between us and other countries and us and ourselves is way bigger than it was back in the 80s. We were united against Russia. Rocky IV. Everybody saw Rocky IV.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have, I just saw a thing before we started the show that it was a thing that Trump put out, and it shows him shaking hands with that piece of shit in North Korea and all kinds of stuff. And this fat fucking piece of shit white guy comes on. He's like, there's a lot of people that are comparing Donald Trump to Hitler, and that's not such a bad thing. And this is an official release from his fucking political party saying that maybe we need somebody like that. And that man should be fucking put in jail and starved to death. Because if the Nazis fucking come back full force, there's going to be a fucking reckoning. And I really hope our side isn't soft when it comes to it. Because the entire world said, Nazis, fuck off. And then they didn't, so we had to shoot them.
Right.
I do not like what's happening right now.
Nobody should. So
no.
All right. Well, speaking of right now, let's see. Is there a button here that won't seem? All right, Chris. Threads. Do you recommend it, and what is your grade?
Yeah, I'm going to recommend it, and I'm going to say nobody should watch it because it's fascinatingly terrifying. It would, okay, if you are paying attention to what's going on in the world, it's going to scare the shit out of you because of the way the war starts seems so fucking plausible. And that really bothers me. But good on the writers, because that was my main thing going into this, was how are they going to explain realistically how this started? And they don't give you the full run up. It's just you see a headline, Russia invades Iran, and then there's arrows showing where the troops are going on a newspaper. And it's just in passing. And it's such a small thing to go from one to the next, where it's like, okay, yeah, we have children in charge and they're going to get mad if you're in their playground. if you are not paying attention, you might just find it interesting. But the scariest part is that this could still happen the way it's on film there. The most disturbing parts to me that didn't have to do with, the fallout and the war and all that was how it was filmed, because it felt real. Like nobody's attractive, like a Hollywood, movie star attractive. They're all absolutely average people, and they have blow-ups, they have quiet moments, but like the camera is so the areas they're in are so tightly compacted, and they are so sweaty and like just exhausted during the whole thing. And it's almost like it actually happened. Like it's very, very believable. So I would like people to see it, but I can't recommend it because I'm not going to stop thinking about it for a long time. And I don't want to do that to people, but given all of that, I mean, as a way to scare the people that could do this to us into seeing what would happen, because they're not free of the consequences of this either. Nuclear winter is across the globe. It's not just, your clouds are going to stay over you. It's not right. It's not how it works. So it puts a bunch of different classes of people in front of you, and you see that they all suffer. Politicians, the government workers, the normal people, pregnant women, everybody. Now I'm going to give it an A- because it was so emotionally effective.
For sure.
And now I don't want to talk about it anymore.
Yeah, right. I mean, I'm with you pretty much across the board. I'm recommending it because it is an incredibly effective, if not the most effective piece of filmmaking I've seen in a really, really long time. But I hate it.
Yeah.
Because it's scary.
Right.
And it's that real world scary.
Yeah.
What was that movie a few years ago where there was like a terrorist attack and it was just the husband and the wife? The wife was outside of the house, but the husband wouldn't let her into the house because of the chance of contaminating the house. Right at your door or right next to your door or something like that.
Yeah, I don't remember the title, but that's, yeah. Yeah.
And the whole thing was he actually had already, like, he had sealed his fate because the fallout had already gotten into the house when he sealed it, and he sealed himself in there with the fallout.
Yeah.
So shit like that, like, it's scary, man. Like, it's scary. But yeah, I think it's very well made. It's done on the cheap in places, but it's more effective that way, I think, than if they did some like over the top, like, special effects thing. Yeah, and it's also a piece of work from its time period too. It's definitely 1984 when you watch this.
Yeah, but you could take the exact same script and make it look like today.
Oh, for sure.
And there would be literally no difference. You might have to change a politician's name, but that's about it. All the reasons for it to happen, it's all there.
Yeah. So as far as the grade, it's a high grade. It's a B+, borderline A-, but it's not like I'm not like, yeah, this is shit is a fucking amazing, because it's not something I'll never watch it again. No. And it's not something that like I'm going to tell people to watch. Like,
yeah,
it's one of those things. If you think you can endure, like I said it earlier, it's a film to be endured, not enjoyed.
Yeah.
So if you think along those lines, then yeah, watch it. I mean, but otherwise, go on about your day and enjoy your life. You don't need to worry about watching Threads.
Right. Until, it's time to see what's going to happen. It's a really good, it's a good study guide if it was to ever happen. But if the missiles go off, you'll lose power, so you won't be able to watch it. So.
Right, exactly. So, Okay, let's move on to a different type of depressing. Let's move on to Whistle, and I'll Come to You. As we said, there are a couple versions of this. Ollie originally suggested Whistle, and I'll Come to You from 1968, written and directed by Jonathan Miller, based on A Whistle and I'll Come to You, My Lad by M.R. James. M.R. James is a very famous British author who did a large glut of ghost stories. There was a number of television adaptations from this time period that were the Christmas, A Ghost Story for Christmas.
Oh, yeah. Christmas used to be a big time for ghost stories.
Yep. So this version of it stars Michael Hordon, who's been in a bunch of stuff. Jonathan Miller, obviously, as we said, wrote and adapted it. And it was originally broadcast on a BBC show called Omnibus. Now, I couldn't track down a version of this on IMDb, even going through Michael Hordon's account there. So there's not a crazy amount of information about this out here. 68 television adaptation from the story was written in 1904. It's basically the story of an eccentric professor who is away on a vacation of sorts. He is in this area which is known for its golfing, and it's right on the water, and he's staying at a hotel, and he just kind of keeps going out each day and exploring. He goes out one day and he comes across this old cemetery, and in the dirt he finds a whistle. And I know that it was a Knights Templar cemetery because in this Wikipedia explanation it says that.
Okay.
But it says here, what happens upon a strange whistle while exploring a Knights Templar cemetery on the East Anglian coast. When blown, the whistle unleashes a frightening supernatural force. Now, again, 1968, frightening supernatural force is a very different thing than frightening supernatural force in 1968.
Yeah.
This is very quiet. This is very much a low risk affair, if you will. He has a couple conversations with the people in the hotel. He doesn't really see a whole lot. There's a scene where he's on the beach and we see a figure way back in the distance. And then he sees a couple of almost just sheets or ethereal things kind of blowing in the wind that we're supposed to take as a ghost.
Okay. Okay. So it's actually closer to the other one than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, somewhat. But once you kind of start to split the hairs and stuff. But anyway, so these are both short too. This version ran 41 minutes, and then I think the version that Chris watched was 50 minutes or so.
Yeah. Which I think is absolutely fine because there's not a lot of story in the one I watched.
No, and there's not a lot of story in the one that I watched either.
Yeah.
So it's the type of thing where it's about building a mood more than anything.
Yeah.
This version, the 68 version, it didn't do a very good job of building a mood for me, though. It was very much just presented as is. He has a conversation with a gentleman over dinner about ghosts and what are ghosts and how we are. And his whole demeanor, the Professor Parkinson's demeanor, is just very off-putting to me. He's talks to himself a lot. He mumbles himself, and everyone mumbles. You can't understand what most of the people are saying is everyone is mumbling. And then when the one or two times things start to happen, the way that he reacts just it doesn't speak with what we're being shown. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
It's not bad.
Okay.
But it's just very it's very bizarre, and not in that weird filmmaking sort of way. It's they made a conscious choice to make this artsy in this way and it comes across weird. It's just very, very British television.
Okay.
For 1968. And then it just ends.
Huh.
So
what's the resolution of it?
The ghosts are real?
Okay.
But the whole thing of the blowing of the whistle and then unleashing a spirit, but there's nothing that's ever really given to us. What I enjoyed most about this was watching him walk along the coast in England, the rocky cliffs. And I'm this is gorgeous. I'm I want to go there just so I can just walk around the beach for a couple hours.
Yeah.
And nothing really goes anywhere. And it was frustrating because I was enjoying like its ideas and where it was attempting to go. It just never really went anywhere. So I think, as I put on my chapstick, I'll get the corners. I liked its attempt. I just wish it had gone somewhere more.
That's fair.
And it didn't.
Yeah.
So the version you watched, Whistle, and I'll Come to You, what year was it? 2010.
Yeah.
Starring John Hurt, Gemma Jones, Leslie Sharp, and Sophie Thompson. Directed by Andy D. Amone. Written by Neil Cross. And then also, of course, based on the same story. Andy worked on something called West is West, the Wipers theme. I don't really recognize anything else here. So a lot of British, looks like a lot of British TV.
Okay.
And this was also a British TV presentation. So why don't you explain this and then maybe compare some of the differences that you heard from my review?
Yeah. So basically what this is we got Professor Broom here dropping his wife off at an old age home because she seems to be catatonic. And he can't care for her anymore, and it's time for her to be there. And then the wife needs time if I remember this correctly, because the whole thing's starting to get jumbled. She needs time to adjust, and they can get used to her, and they want him removed from the whole thing so that he doesn't influence anything. It's kind of like, this is her home now. Fuck off till she's set. That's about what that was, right?
I would say so, yes.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
They don't want him to go away permanently.
No, just give her a couple days. Because, to get her on her schedule and the meal times and all of that without any outside distractions.
Right. And also the nurse there, Hetty, played by Leslie Sharp, was also like, take some time for yourself.
Yeah, that was the next thing I was going to say. Because he talks about where they used to go. He loves his wife. There's no doubt about that everything he does for her. Because he talks about where they used to go, and that's where he goes. He goes to the hotel that they stayed in, at least once, probably a bunch of times if I remember right. And that's where he's gonna go, to the beach. So he does that. And he obviously carries guilt with him because he's always calling to check in and make sure she's okay. Because he's a good guy. But he finds a ring on the beach, not a whistle. And then after that, he starts seeing things. Once he reads the inscription inside the ring, which is in Latin, he starts seeing this figure draped in white, billowy, like gauze material.
The connection with the whistle and the ring both have the same Latin phrase written on them.
They do.
There is a connection there.
Okay. Yeah. And essentially he's having these scary moments where he thinks that death is coming for him, because it is. But he's more concerned for his wife because he doesn't want her to be alone, but he doesn't want to be alone. And this really, this hit a bad place for me. Because I don't like thinking about that part of relationship, especially. I'm just to pad this out a little bit, I'll say that since I've been taking my medicine, I kind of feel like a part of my whole being has woken up from something, and that I'm actually experiencing things the way I should. And I am having a hard time getting over the fact that it took this long for me to get here. And all of the wasted time is not behind me yet. I can't get over I waited this long because I didn't know what was wrong. And this kind of just hammered it all home. Like, hey, guess what? Y'all gonna fucking die soon. And in my head, because of the way everything's going, I think it's like, oh, I'm just not going to wake up tomorrow. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to sleep and I'm like, I probably won't even wake up. I won't even know it. And that's the scariest part, is that you would just cease to exist. Like, because the only reality that we have is the one that we are experiencing individually. And I know that my kids would eventually be okay, but I need to be there, not to protect them or anything, but I like being with them more than anything else. And I don't ever want that to end. Like, at this point in my life, I'm still thinking, I don't understand how some people can be like, yeah, I'm okay, I can go now. No, to like,
you're not there yet.
No, but but like, I also go back to and this is, I'm going to lighten it a little bit here. In Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead, Matt Frewer was bit, and I love Matt Frewer forever, since Max Headroom. And he's talking to his daughter, and he could be killed before he turns, but he begs her to not do it until he's gone. And the last words he says is, "You want every single second." And that kind of stuck with me.
Yeah.
And this was hard to watch. Not as hard as, like, you know, if they were my same age or whatever and all that, but it gets you thinking about the stuff you don't want to think about.
For sure.
And that's why I hate this. But
and not to interrupt, but I'm going to interrupt. I think for you and I, who are both very lucky men, that we both, you know, we've had the same wife in the same relationship for essentially our entire adult lives. And I think it's a very different situation for guys like us who are in like the same marriage that they've been in for 20 years or so, 20 plus years for you. I'll be 20 years next year, but I've been with Melissa for over 20 years.
Yeah.
And you know, when we have kids and we have a good, solid family dynamic that we genuinely love.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it's unfortunately that's just not the truth for everybody. And not everybody wants that. And it's, you know, I'm not saying that that's what you should or shouldn't have. Everybody should be able to decide what they want to have with their life. But we are lucky to have that.
Yeah.
So I think when something like this makes you think about those things, it will hit us different.
Yeah.
Because we have those things. And again, if you don't have those things, that's not a knock. But like,
it's just a different situation. That's all. Yeah.
For us, that's what hits.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely know of two people that wanted to have kids, but not the kid they got first. Speaking of which, I'll make this real quick because people do message me and ask for updates and stuff. Today is April 8th.
Ocho.
And it was a year ago today, which was the last time my parents spoke to me. And then we cut contact because of their behavior and the fact that they don't ever consider our feelings before what they want to do. And to speak to your thing, I think that Ellen and I went through IVF for 7 years, and we were determined to do this if it worked. And we would absolutely do everything we can to be better than our parents were. But there are people like my father who had a kid when he was 21 and my mother was 19, and like they weren't prepared. They could not handle somebody with my wiring in my brain. But they really were cool with my brother. So looking back on that, it's like, yeah, they wanted kids, but they wanted kids like him, not like me. And I'm trying to I don't know what the point is. I'm trying to get over that, but I can't until I fucking yell at them about it or something.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I
know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
I need to tell them that they fucked up, that I have ADHD, I'm autistic, and I have so much OCD and anxiety. And they were told what was wrong with me. And I did not get the help I needed, which led me to believe I didn't need medication because I was an idiot who listened to other people instead of fucking doctors as well. But if I had got the help I needed when I was 10 fucking years old, there is regret, and I do lament what could have been, because it's unimaginable what I could have been capable of.
Right. Yeah.
And that was it wasn't taken from me. It was never an option. And I don't understand why they made those choices. So things like this, things like Threads and this get me thinking about all kinds of stuff. And it takes me to some really, really dark places. And then I have to go play Horizon and Spider-Man 2 for a while. But I can get over it. But it's every day. It's all the time. And with John Hurt's character, like that's he everything he does is for her. And I guess what I'm saying is, yeah, there are people out there that don't give a shit, that would just whatever. And we're watching a movie about somebody that's not like that.
Right. Which is not the norm.
Mm.
Like, it's not the norm.
But he
I
was a good husband. I miss him. He was a great actor.
Yeah. Yeah. When he passed away, he was like in his 90s, wasn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, I think.
1940 to 2017. So that's 77.
Oh yeah, that's not 90. But that's
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. Anyway, so just kind of rounding back here.
Yeah.
So in this version, as things start to happen, it's a little more concrete, and it's kind of like he's in bed and someone's trying to open the door. And he sees their feet. He sees their feet, and like he's physically seeing somebody open the door.
Right in the hands.
And,
eventually,
the hands. And there's a great exchange he has with Leslie Sharp's character Hetty, who is the person who runs the hotel, when he comes downstairs the next morning to go out and walk the beach, where he's like, "Hey, somebody tried to get into my room last night," and she's like, "Well, I'm sorry, I actually wasn't here. My son was sick. I had to go home and tend to my son." And he has this realization where he's like, "You left me alone in this hotel by myself," because there was no other customer staying in the hotel at the time. Yeah. And he has this realization about being alone, and it means a lot more than just like he was alone in the hotel. It's like he looks at it and he's like, he's alone because his wife isn't there, and then this lady that was supposed to be watching over him wasn't there.
Yeah, it's literally alone like that
in an area that you shouldn't be.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a taste of what his life will be when she's gone, and it scared the shit out of him. Not to mention all the Innsmouth stuff at the door.
Right.
You know?
So this opens up this whole other piece of the story and I've never read the original story, but like then the other version did. And what I gathered is the other version is much more literal to what the story was.
Okay.
Because this definitely opens it up. And there's a weird thing with the wife where, and maybe this is getting into spoiler stuff, but where like as he starts to be taken away, she starts to react. And like, I didn't fully get it. I'm not going to lie. I was just kind of like, now they're throwing this whole like supernatural thing of like, well, maybe he was holding her back, or like, what was the point of whatever this ghost or this being or this entity was that came to take him? Because he ends up dying at the end of this. That doesn't happen in the other one.
Right.
And I don't know. Maybe I missed something, or I think it got
more symbolic at the end, because she disappears from the home, and he dies. And I think, because I looked, there's no real good explanation of the ending. I think it's the two of them passed at the same time.
But there's this weird
or
part
she
with
came
her.
to get him. I don't know.
Like there's this weird part with her where like after he's passed away, the final scene is her. The nurse comes in and looks at her, and she kind of like, she wakes up, like, and she looks around, and then like I gathered that she just got up and walked out.
Okay.
Otherwise, I don't understand why they would show her looking around and the nurse seeing her do this.
Yeah, that's part of the problem. If you're gonna take a character that's been rooted in reality and then supernatural it at the very end, it's going to be confusing. I think that's what they tried to do.
I think so too. Yeah.
That's fine, but she has no history of that in the film.
Correct.
So
Right.
it makes it a little weird. Like maybe you could have seen a shot of the ghost and you get a glimpse and it might look like her face or it might not be, or for a second it flips over, but you don't really see any of the supernatural entities' faces.
Yeah. So for me, since I was able to watch both of them, the original one I thought should have been 10 minutes shorter, but this one I felt they could have expanded on the story they were trying to tell and given us an extra, 15, 20 minutes and still been under like an hour and 20 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, I liked where they were going with the 2010 version, and the one, the 1958 or 1968 version, it just didn't give you enough. So I don't know.
Okay.
You ready to grade? You got other
no,
things you
I'm
want to
good.
No, all right. All right, Chris, do you recommend, and what is your grade for 2010 Whistle and I'll Come to You?
I don't know if I can recommend it because it's this is going to sound dumb maybe, but it's really straightforward and there's nothing surprising about it. It's just watching this one old husband just trying to relive the parts of his life that he loved and without the person he did it with, which makes it even sadder. So for me, it's not fun because there's the supernatural stuff, the scary stuff isn't scary enough. It's not present enough in the film. It's there, but it's a background element almost until, the end when it ramps up.
Right.
But I would rather read the short story and get the full effect, especially, since it's called Whistle and I'll Come. There's no whistle in this. He doesn't even whistle once.
Yeah, that was weird to me. Like, I get the idea of like the wedding ring and like him and what's going on, but it could have just easily been a whistle.
Yeah,
like it didn't need to be a ring. Like I get what they were trying to do, but it didn't really change anything.
Yeah. If it was maybe a continuation or a sequel to the original one and you call it that, yeah, and the ring is his touchstone to get the whole thing started, like the whistle was in the one you watched, I could see that. I could go with that. But it doesn't appear to be that way. So, meh.
Yeah,
it's well done. It's acted it's acted great, and and everybody in it, as few people that are in this film, they all do a great job. But I can't recommend it because like what is the story except we all die and this poor guy lost his wife? That's not fun. It's not entertaining to me. Right. But it is very well done. So I'm going to give it a B, and I'm never going to watch it again because I don't like being depressed anymore.
Fair. So I'll grade them both since I watched them both. So the 1968 Whistle and I'll Come to You, it's fine.
Yeah.
Thoroughly fine. Like, I love the scenery. I love the walking on the beach. I just needed more. Like, I needed more story, a little more like clarity in terms of like where this whistle came from. And like, I like the idea of just kind of like giving it to you and not giving you the information, but you got to back it up somewhere else. And it just didn't back up somewhere else. So the 2010 version, I liked more, but had a lot of the same issues in terms of like the unclarity in the story we're telling. Like, is it
yeah,
like what is it? And he didn't even find the ring in a graveyard or anything. Like it was just like in the sand.
Yeah.
So there's just it just needed more. But again, I love the cold, windy English countryside, like on the beach, like that. That would be a vacation I would love to take.
Yeah.
I would love to do that and just walk up and down the shores. Like, so I love that. And I love the scariness of the wind blowing outside the room and like the thunderstorms coming through and that stuff. But again, it just didn't give me enough. So I will give 1968 a C minus, and I will give 2010 a C, borderline C plus.
Okay.
So there you have it.
Yeah,
Ollie, thank you so much. These were films that we would not have covered otherwise, and I'm glad that you essentially made us cover them because we wouldn't have got to them otherwise. And in Threads, despite the how we feel about rewatching and stuff, I think it is an important piece. So there you have it. Speaking of important pieces of ass, Joe is here to talk about part 3 in the Slumber Party Massacre saga.
All right.
Well, hello, Bill. Hello, Chris. And hello, OTC Nation. Your boy Joe here, and we're back in Los Angeles. Bill made me watch Slumber Party Massacre 3. Sometimes. Not all the time. Sometimes I enjoy having to hunt a film down to find it. It gives me a tiny bit of that dopamine response we got back in the ancient times, roaming the video stores to find that one horror movie your buddy told you about that you just had to see. Or stumbling upon a hidden gem that some thoughtful clerk had snuck in with that week's order. I was that clerk.
Yeah, we were too.
I got paid shit money, no insurance. The owners were assholes who treated that place like a piggy bank, and I'm pretty sure they fled the state after I left there because I think they were going to get busted for tax evasion. But goddamn if the East Kentwood Ion Video that I ran did not have the best cult movie selection in the Metro Grand Rapids area. Finding a point to that, I spent almost an hour this morning trying to find Slumber Party Massacre 3 and was very thankful that Cine Terror put Massacre na Festa do Pijama 3 on their YouTube channel. I'm pretty sure that's Italian. I'm not sure.
Sounds it.
Come to think of it, do you think there was a video store in the entirety of North America that didn't have at least one or more Slumber Party Massacre movies on the shelf? It was like a staple.
Yeah.
I think it might have been obligatory or maybe some sort of local ordinance.
It just appeared.
But I think you'd get fined if you didn't have it. It was just one of those movies that came with the introductory welcome package if you started a video store.
There you go. Yeah.
Along with a collection of most of the Friday the 13th movies, but not all of them. Each store was missing at least one copy. There was usually a well-worn copy of Motel Hell, which is a movie that I love. Mm-hmm. A copy of Mountaintop Motel Massacre that had insane tracking issues but still made its way back to the shelf after every complaint because we're not getting paid enough to give a fuck. And the box for Sleepaway Camp 2, but nobody knew where the fuck that tape was, and they never just took the box off the shelf. What a time to be alive. Let's watch this movie and erase how underwhelming Night 1 of WrestleMania was. With the exception of Sami Zayn and Gunther, that match was dope. So, you know how when horror got meta in the early aughts and they really leaned into either leaning into the tropes or making fun of the tropes? Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is what they were making fun of. I get accused a lot in wrestling of being too much of a traditionalist. And if that's true, you can apply that to horror as well. Just like I believe you should at least try to make people cheer the babyface and boo the heels and tell a story and have a realistic looking competition, I think you have to at least try to make me care when these kids start getting a drill through the chest.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Is that not a gnarly way to die? These quote-unquote teens in this film are such a good example of creating characters that are so vapid and annoying that I'm like, can we get Leatherface in here instead of some misogynist with a drill? I am looking forward to these kids becoming a statistic. We are introduced to our gaggle of future victims, plus one or two future PTSD sufferers, while they're playing volleyball on the beach. In Los Angeles, in the summer. And there's maybe 12 other people on the beach, so they either filmed this on one of the days when there's so much toxic waste in the water that they have an advisory day and just nobody goes to the beach.
That doesn't happen.
Or they filmed it in early January, and these poor actors in their very, very, very 90s swimsuits are colder than a Republican's heart.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
They try to establish who these characters are and their personalities, but they just used a regular boom mic on a windy beach. So it sounds like when you're trying to talk to someone right after you saw Kiss in 1998 and you couldn't hear for 2 days. They follow that up with a driving montage because 90 minutes is apparently way too much time to tell this story. And the only takeaway there is that the girls are sitting above the seat on the trunk of like a 1986 LeBaron. That was a sweet car with no apparent safety apparatus. And the driver changes lanes. And I swear to you, one of these girls almost like ate shit on the pavement on Lincoln Boulevard. Which, honestly, that truly would have made this movie more entertaining than it is so far. A handful of red herrings are introduced, and we're finally at the slumber party. Side note, whoever was in charge of recording the sound for SPM3 should be beaten. And there's no joke there. There's no, like, I know I usually do, like, beaten with, a wet stalk of broccoli or something, just something like, no, they should just be beaten.
All right.
46 minutes in, 3 people killed, and what I'm guessing was maybe 90 seconds of screen time for that. The rest of this isn't even the stalker stalking stalkees. What did they fill the rest of the time with, you ask? Not much, but I'll give them this. They nailed that in high school. You probably don't know what the fuck you're doing trying to, attract a partner or party or have sex, or in this case, even kill someone. Everything in this movie is more awkward than a fart at a funeral. There's an abnormally large cast of kids here, too. And I can't remember everyone's name, but the kid who looks like the kid we all knew in the 90s who only shopped at Abercrombie & Fitch.
Oh, yeah.
Well, he turns out to be the killer because his uncle, who was a cop, molested him. Yeah, mind you, none of these kids... And I'm not going to bat for these kids. They can all get fucked, in my opinion. Yet still, they had nothing. They had or have absolutely nothing to do with, apparently his name was Ken, having been diddled as a kid. Like, hey, Ken, that sucks that you were, if you were like killing cops because they clearly established that Ken's touchy uncle was a cop, it would make some sense. Or even if these kids were like related to cops or, that,
that's a simple thing
here
to
made
do.
sense whatsoever.
Not that simple.
Ken even
apparently.
looks at a picture of his uncle and says, "This is for you." Was he with his? Was he like on his uncle's? I don't know, y'all. This movie is bad. It's just bad. It's so bad. I said y'all, and I'm from Michigan. I don't say y'all. I can't even think of it. This movie has sapped my sense of humor. This movie was as bad as that Jimmy and Jay Uso match was from last night.
Yeah,
That's
that was
bad.
pretty weak.
There's 7 other kids here against one preppy wiener boy, and it takes them 30 minutes to kill him. I never thought I would miss the dollar store rockabilly drill guitar guy from part 2, but here I am. And here's the thing, the good. If you like looking at pretty women wearing not much, you are going to enjoy 80-ish minutes of this 87-minute shit show. The bad. If you enjoy good acting, writing, and sound in a movie, you are going to be mad at all 87 minutes of this movie. SPM3 fails harder than the Byzantine Empire did in 1453 at protecting itself from the Turks. The only thing left is the 2021 remake of the OG SPM, and I'll be back with that next week. Until then, be good, everyone.
Well, there you have it. I've never seen that one, so I will make sure to never watch it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Huh.
All right. Let's finish this show out strong or like a wet fart. We'll see what Reverend Scott decides. Ah, damn it. Killer Workout is a separate film.
Well, you sent me. Did we ever covered Killer Workout? No, this one says Aerobicide, but it's labeled Killer Workout. All right.
Why watch Death Spa?
Well, that's not what you told me to watch.
Watch Death Spa.
Here we go. Here's what we got. Did we ever cover Killer Workout?
Why did I watch?
I want to say because I said I want to say yes, but that could have been Death Spa. I'll check a trailer. You wrote, yeah, we definitely did that. And I don't remember the giant safety pin killing the girl in the shower. Okay, let's do that then. It's also on Tubi. And I said,
dude,
of course it is.
This week, on a very special Holy Shit with Reverend Scott, Bill's communication skills never cease to amaze anyone. Reverend Scott now has even more shit to do this week than usual, and Mr. Chris is upset he didn't get to take Rodrigo's twins' baby to see the King Kong baby.
Fuck this.
Let's begin.
What?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah. With Reverend Scott. Sweet. This is fucking great.
Hey there, Bill and Chris. This is Reverend Scott.
Whatever.
Excited to hear you too. So what were you up to last week on the show?
That's okay. Well, there you go. We're going to do Death Spa and Killer Workout. And then the other film, Tunnel Vision.
3 movies? Fuck. Well, I guess it's a good thing I didn't have time to watch much last week, because I'm sure shit not going to get much time to talk about anything I did. So I guess we can start with
Tunnel Vision, 1976.
So what was this thing about, Chris?
For shorthand, it's basically a clip show of original material.
Sounds awful. Who's in it?
There's a number of faces that show up in this that you'll recognize, like Al Franken and John Candy, Rick Hurst.
That fucking piece of shit, Chevy Chase.
Joe Flattery, Mary Musker.
Nice job. You cover a Joe Flattery movie and now he's dead. Died on April Fool's Day. And I checked, it was real. Yeah. Just like the racist slurs in this movie. Which, just because they were in the movie doesn't mean you should have been repeating them over and over in your review. But despite that, the movie was still trash, and I give it an F+. But the review gets a B-. Let's move on to Death Spa, the spa that eats people.
It's the place for a killer workout.
See? What the hell?
Yeah, when you advertise it like that, why would anyone go to work out there?
It's got everybody is in a leotard. There's like 40 different aerobics classes going on at once.
And they're those great 80s ones with the French cut sides on them, where it goes all the way up. That was during formative years in my brain. So I go back to that and I'm like, I still like that.
Hashtag never forget.
Yeah, I don't.
Never mind. That's why people work out there.
Despite the fact that there was a problem in the sauna and the woman got hurt, this guy's also now had his chest ripped open by this thing. And there was also a scene where a woman was injured jumping off of a diving board. And they do not close the club.
No.
Because they have the Mardi Gras party coming later this
Tourism.
week.
Oh my God, the reason really is tourism, isn't it?
It is.
Holy shit.
I agree. You can't shut down your business just because a few Karens are complaining about the multiple murders going on. So enough about that movie. What's your final thoughts on Death Spa?
So this movie's stupid, but it's stupid.
Neat. I give Death Spa a B+, and the review gets a A- probably. But just in case your body isn't in good enough shape yet, aka the shape of a casket, we also got Killer Workout.
This movie kind of made me start hating slasher movies.
Interesting.
How is that possible? I bet this had everything you could ever want in a gym slasher.
There's nothing, except they kill people with a giant safety pin.
You'd think he'd at least use a dumbbell or a sweaty gym rag or something. Oh well.
But in the end, when it's revealed who the killer is, you're like, yeah, no shit.
I wasn't, because I'm never going to watch this shit. I give it a D+, and the review gets a B. So, like I said, I didn't get to watch any movies last week, except for one, Hidden Figures. And that was while I was on a plane flying to North Carolina for some vacation time, visiting some friends of my wife. And Bill, I know you were begging me to come over this month, but this is the only time I had that I could take my daughter over there.
I'm not begging yet.
Now you got a whole month for that.
Irregardless, I had never seen the old white savior Kevin Costner in Hidden Figures before, and it was really good. And if somehow you don't know anything about this movie, it follows 3 African American women in NASA. And this is based on a true story. All of them were all the first to become something in their fields in various areas of science, computing, and engineering. Obviously, watching anyone get treated in the way they're treated in most of this movie makes your 2024 brain think,
That doesn't make sense at all.
None.
But this was the early 60s. Those people were fucking stupid. So what do you expect? And sure, from moment 1 in that flick, you're like,
Oh, I know what they're doing. Okay.
but you don't care. When he beats down the sign for the colored bathroom or allows Catherine into the high clearance meeting and she does math on a chalkboard, I'm sure everyone in the audience cheered.
It's garbage.
Well, maybe everyone except for you two after watching your racist tunnel vision movie, but I enjoyed it just fine. And I'm at least 99% sure that I hadn't seen this movie before. But if I had, I forgot so much of it that I was still thinking,
That's awesome. I don't remember that happening the first time.
so I give Hidden Figures a B+. It's worth a watch, especially if you're weird like me and somehow went this long without seeing it. I know that's not very cold movie, so next week on the segment, I review Late Night with the Devil. How's that sound?
That's okay.
So until I return with a little bit of the devil inside me, peace and love, guys. Listen to Outside the Cinema, your source for cult movies with class.
A lot of N-words with hard R's.
Yeah.
Or see OTC live on Twitch.
Just an excuse to have really, really attractive people in skin-tight outfits dancing around.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you have it. Another show in the books. Thanks again to Ollie. If you're a Patreon member already, send us some flicks with some explanations and we'll try to get them onto the docket. If you're not a member, sign up. Patreon.com/outside the cinema. Keeps the show alive. That money is the only thing keeping the show alive.
That and our determination to
No, not even.
keep going.
Not even. Yeah, follow us on Instagram, OTC Bill, at Cthulhu. Yeah, that's all we got, man.
Yeah, I'm good.
Cool. Everyone have themselves a good week. We'll talk to you again next week. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye.